Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Steam curled against the glass door as the hot water pounded over my shoulders. My eyes were closed, lost in the rhythm, until I heard the faintest creak. At first, I thought I imagined it, but then, the door to the bathroom opened, and I froze. Through the fog, her silhouette appeared, hesitant, but not leaving. My breath hitched, my heartbeat quickened, echoing louder than the shower spray. I pressed a hand against the slick tile wall, unsure if I should call out or just wait. Her voice was soft, almost playful. "I didn't know you were in here." But she didn't step back. Instead, she lingered, her hand brushing lightly along the counter as if she had every excuse to stay. For a moment, silence filled the small space, charged, heavy, and impossible to ignore. My pulse raced, my chest tightening with a nervous thrill. When I finally glanced toward her, she met my eyes. The steam blurred everything except that stare, steady, bold, and holding me there as if we'd both crossed some invisible line. I turned slightly, pulling the shower door a fraction closer, but not closed all the way. The crack in the glass became a doorway to tension neither of us seemed ready to break. I swallowed hard, the air thick with heat and something unspoken. She tilted her head, a teasing smile playing on her lips as she tucked a strand of damp hair behind her ear. "Guess I should let you finish." Yet she didn't move. Instead, the silence grew sharper, her gaze tracing mine, almost daring me to react. Every second stretched longer, my skin prickling with awareness. I could hear the faint rhythm of her breathing, matching my own uneven pace. It wasn't just an intrusion anymore, it was a moment suspended between choice and temptation. And then, she stepped closer. Just enough that I could see the flutter of her lashes through the steam, just enough that the space between us felt dangerously small. My hand gripped the edge of the door, unsure if I was pulling it shut or holding it open. That's when everything stopped. Her smile faded into something unreadable, and I couldn't tell if she was about to leave, or if she wanted me to stop her. The answer would change everything. The shower scene lingered in my mind far longer than it should have. That moment, those eyes holding mine, the silence heavy enough to drown in, it wasn't just about being caught off guard. It was about something deeper that had been quietly building for months, something I'd tried to ignore. You see, my marriage hadn't been steady for a long time. My husband, her father, had grown distant, buried in work, distracted, always too tired to notice the small things. The laughter we once shared had thinned into routine pleasantries, and I found myself aching for attention, for someone to look at me as if I mattered. And then she came to live with us. At first, it was awkward, blending our lives under one roof. She was quiet, observant, carrying her own shadows of a broken past with her. I saw the way she kept her guard up, the way she used humor to deflect. And somehow, in the quiet spaces, I started to see parts of myself in her, longing for connection, craving to be seen. It started innocently. Little conversations in the kitchen when the house was asleep. A touch that lingered just a second too long when she passed me a dish. The way her eyes lit up when I laughed at her jokes. They were fleeting moments, but they made my chest tighten with something I couldn't name, something I didn't dare to. The cracks in my marriage made those moments louder. Every forgotten kiss goodnight, every unanswered question, every sigh that felt like dismissal, they all carved space for the pull I felt toward her. And she noticed. She always noticed. One evening, we sat on the porch, the night air heavy and warm. She leaned back in her chair, her hair falling loose around her shoulders, and for a moment, the silence between us felt almost like confession. "You deserve more, you know," she said softly, not looking at me. Her words lodged in my chest. She wasn't just talking about him. I could feel it, the way her hand brushed mine on the armrest, the pause before she pulled it back. I wanted to tell myself it was wrong, that I was imagining it. But then there were the stolen glances in the hallway, the way she would stand a little too close when no one else was around, the way my heartbeat betrayed me every single time. It wasn't just attraction, it was a dangerous mix of comfort and desire, stitched together by everything we weren't saying. And after that moment in the bathroom, I couldn't pretend anymore. The tension was no longer a whisper in the background, it was a storm waiting for the right moment to break. And deep down, I wasn't sure if I wanted to stop it. The days after the bathroom incident felt like walking on a tightrope, every glance, every silence, every casual word balanced on the edge of something neither of us dared to name. The air between us had changed, and I felt it most in the little moments that shouldn't have mattered. Like at dinner, when she laughed at one of my husband's rare attempts at humor, but her eyes flickered to me instead of him. My fork paused mid-air, and my stomach twisted in a way I couldn't explain. Was it jealousy? Desire? Both? Later that night, I found myself lingering in the hallway outside her room. The soft glow from under her door spilled across the floor. I almost knocked, almost gave in to the pull, but I stopped myself, pressing my hand to the wall just to feel something solid. My heart raced like I'd run a mile, and the temptation burned hotter than I wanted to admit. The conflict grew sharper when I noticed her testing the boundaries. A brush of her shoulder against mine in the kitchen. A playful smirk when she caught me staring too long. Even her silence felt heavy, as if she knew exactly what she was doing, like she was waiting for me to slip first. And slip, I almost did. One afternoon, when my husband was out, she leaned close to grab a mug from the cabinet above me. Her arm brushed against mine, her breath warm on my cheek. I froze, gripping the counter for balance. The space between us shrank to almost nothing. Her eyes lingered on my lips before darting back to mine, and the charge in that moment was undeniable. But then, she pulled back. A teasing smile curved her lips as if she'd won some silent game, leaving me breathless and flushed. I hated how much I wanted her to stay in that moment. I hated even more how disappointed I felt when she didn't. The suspense was suffocating. The jealousy, the temptation, the hunger I thought I'd buried, it was all rising to the surface. And I knew it was only a matter of time before one of us broke the silence, and the line we'd been dancing around shattered completely. The house was quiet that night, too quiet. My husband had gone away on a last-minute business trip, leaving just the two of us in the hollow silence of the rooms. I told myself it was nothing, that I would simply keep to my routine, but the truth was, my pulse had been racing since he closed the door behind him. She appeared in the living room, barefoot, her hair slightly messy as though she'd just woken from a nap. She wore a soft smile that wasn't playful this time, it was softer, almost knowing. She dropped onto the couch beside me, closer than necessary, her shoulder brushing mine. The air thickened instantly. My throat went dry, every nerve alive under her nearness. The glow of the lamp cast a golden halo over her, highlighting the sharp curve of her jaw, the softness in her eyes. We sat there, side by side, a movie playing forgotten in the background. My hand rested against the cushion between us, and when her fingers grazed it, light as a feather, I felt my breath catch. She didn't pull away. Instead, her touch lingered, deliberate. I like when it's just us, she whispered, her voice low, intimate. The words sank into me, stirring something dangerous and irresistible. I turned toward her, and our eyes locked. There it was again, that unspoken truth we'd been circling for weeks, but this time, it was stronger, undeniable. The silence pulsed between us, each second an invitation. My heart pounded so loud I was certain she could hear it. Her gaze dropped, lingering on my lips before flicking back up, and for a moment I thought she might close the distance. But she didn't. She leaned back slightly, biting her lip, testing me, daring me to make the choice instead. I shifted closer without realizing it, my breath brushing her cheek. The movie's light flickered across our faces, but it was the heat between us that set the room on fire. And then, footsteps. A sound from upstairs. We both froze, heads snapping toward the staircase. My chest tightened, torn between relief and disappointment. We weren't alone after all. Or, was it just the creak of an old house? Her hand found mine under the blanket, fingers entwining with bold certainty. And that's when I knew, this was no longer something we could ignore. But what would happen next remained unknown. The weight of her fingers twined with mine felt like a confession neither of us had spoken aloud. My pulse hammered so violently I thought it might betray me before I could even breathe a word. I turned toward her, ready to give in to the fire that had been smoldering between us for weeks, until a sudden sound shattered the fragile silence. The front door creaked open. We jerked apart, hands sliding free as if burned. My husband's voice rang out, casual, unsuspecting, "I'm home early." My stomach dropped. Panic rushed through me as she quickly tucked her legs beneath the blanket, eyes wide but unreadable. I forced myself to stand, smoothing my hair with trembling fingers, my smile too tight to pass as natural. He stepped into the room, suitcase in hand, his gaze sweeping over us with a flicker too quick to name. "Didn't expect to be back tonight. Flight got changed." I nodded, words catching in my throat. "That's good. You must be tired." But his eyes lingered on me, then on her. Something in his expression shifted, and I felt a chill run down my spine. Later, when he went upstairs, I found her waiting in the kitchen. The tension snapped the moment our eyes met. She leaned against the counter, arms folded, but her voice was steady, bold. "He suspects something." My breath caught. "There is nothing to suspect," I whispered, but even as I said it, the lie tasted bitter. She stepped closer, close enough that the warmth of her body reached me. "Then why does it feel like there is?" Her gaze locked onto mine, daring me to deny what had been building between us. I should have turned away. I should have walked out of that kitchen. But instead, I let myself lean closer, the gravity between us impossible to fight. My hand found her cheek, trembling with both fear and longing. And then, the twist. A sharp voice cut through the air. I knew it. I spun around to see him standing in the doorway, eyes dark, face pale with betrayal. The suitcase was still in his hand, his knuckles white against the handle. He had come back downstairs silently, watching, waiting. The room spun. My heart collapsed under the weight of his stare, but even then, my hand remained against her cheek. I couldn't let go. Not now. He dropped the suitcase with a thud, the sound echoing like thunder in the silence. "So this is what's been going on?" His voice broke between rage and heartbreak. I opened my mouth, but no words came. The truth was laid bare, exposed in the harsh light of his eyes. And in that moment, I realized, the real danger wasn't just in being caught. It was in admitting, even to myself, that part of me didn't regret it. The house held its breath, waiting for the storm that was about to break. The silence after his words was unbearable, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. My hand fell from her cheek, but the damage was already done. His eyes had seen everything, every stolen glance, every unspoken truth, and there was no undoing it. "You," he spat, pointing at me, voice trembling with rage, "after everything we've been through, this is how you repay me?" His fists clenched, jaw tight, as though he was fighting himself as much as me. Tears burned in my eyes, but the words wouldn't come fast enough. "It's not what you think," he cut me off with a bitter laugh. "Don't insult me." I saw it. I felt it the moment I walked through that door. "You haven't looked at me that way in months." She stepped forward then, bold where I faltered. "Maybe that's because you stopped seeing her a long time ago." Her voice was steady, almost defiant, though her hands shook at her sides. His eyes snapped to her, disbelief flashing across his face. "Stay out of this. You don't know what you're talking about." But she didn't back down. "I know she deserves to feel wanted. To feel alive. And you," she paused, locking eyes with him, "you let her forget what that even feels like." The words sliced through the air, sharper than any scream. He staggered back a step, the truth sinking deeper than he wanted to admit. For a moment, I thought he might lash out, but instead, his shoulders slumped, and the fury gave way to something far more dangerous: his defeat. "I don't even recognize you anymore," he said softly, his voice breaking. "Either of you." He grabbed his suitcase and stormed toward the door. The slam shook the house, leaving behind a silence even heavier than before. I collapsed onto a chair, my body trembling as though the floor had been ripped from under me. My heart pounded with grief, guilt, and something else. Freedom. She knelt beside me, her hand gently covering mine. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way," she whispered, her eyes glassy with unshed tears. "But I can't pretend I don't feel it anymore." Her confession unraveled the last thread of denial I had been clinging to. I met her gaze, searching for hesitation, for regret, but all I found was raw, unguarded longing. The consequences were real. My marriage was in ruins. The life I had built was crumbling. But in the wreckage, something undeniable burned between us, something neither of us could erase. And though everything had changed, one truth remained: the story wasn't over yet. The house felt heavier after he left, as though the echoes of his anger still clung to the walls. I sat there in silence, my hands trembling, my heart raw. For years, that marriage had been my anchor, even if the anchor had long since rusted. Now it was gone, torn loose in a single night. I expected to feel broken. I expected to drown in guilt. But what I felt most was relief. She was still by my side, her hand holding mine with a steadiness that made the chaos around us blur. Her touch was gentle, not demanding, but firm enough to remind me I wasn't alone. When I finally met her gaze, I saw none of the judgment I had feared, only quiet devotion, a softness that melted the last of my defenses. "You don't have to say anything," she whispered, brushing a tear from my cheek. "I just need you to know I'm here. No matter what." Those words, simple, unpolished, struck deeper than any promise I had heard in years. My chest tightened, not with guilt, but with something long buried: hope. I reached for her hand, threading my fingers through hers. "Everything's falling apart," I admitted, my voice shaky. "But when you're here, it doesn't feel like the end. It feels like a beginning." Her lips curved into the smallest, most vulnerable smile. She leaned closer, her forehead resting gently against mine. The silence between us wasn't heavy anymore, it was warm, filled with the rhythm of our breaths sinking together. The storm that had been building for weeks finally gave way, not in fire, but in tenderness. Her hand cupped my cheek, her thumb tracing circles that steadied me. And when our lips finally met, it wasn't reckless or forbidden, it was soft, slow, and certain. It was everything we hadn't dared to admit, wrapped in one fragile, perfect moment. For the first time in a long time, I felt alive. The world outside could rage, judgments could come, and consequences would unfold. But here, in this quiet moment, all that mattered was us, the bond we had chosen, the love we had claimed from the ruins of what had been. When we finally pulled apart, I couldn't stop the smile tugging at my lips. "We'll figure this out," I said, more certain than I had been about anything in years. She nodded, squeezing my hand. "Together." And with that, the chaos faded, replaced by a new truth: sometimes love doesn't arrive the way you expect. Sometimes it arrives in the fire, in the storm, and if you're brave enough to hold on, it can be the most beautiful thing of all.